Homer's Odyssey, Book 3. The argument. Telemachus and heaven's wise dame that never husband had now came to Nestor, who his either guest received at the religious feast he made to Neptune on his shore, and there told what was done before the Trojan turrets, and the state of all the Greeks since Ilium's fate. This book these three of greatest place doth serve with many a varied grace, which past Minerva takes her leave, whose state when Nestor doth perceive, with sacrifice he makes it known, where many a pleasing rite is shown, which done, Telemachus hath gained a chariot of him, who ordained Pisistratus his son, his guide to Sparta, and when starry-eyed the ample heaven began to be, all house rights to afford them free in Pharis, Diocles did please, his surname Telemachus. Another argument. Ulysses' son with Nestor lies, to Sparta gone, thence Pylos flies. The sun now left the great and goodly lake, and to the firm heaven bright ascent did make, to shine as well upon the mortal birth, inhabiting the ploughed life-giving earth, as on the ever treaders upon death. And now to Pylos, that so garnisheth herself with buildings, old Neleus' town, the prince and goddess come, had strange sights shown. For on that marine shore the people there to Neptune, that the azure looks doth wear, beeves that were wholly black gave holy flame. 9 seats of state they made to his high name, and every seat set with 500 men, and each 500 was to furnish them with 9 black oxen every sacred seat. These of the entrails only pleased to eat, and to the god inflamed the fleshy thighs. By this time Pylos with the sparkling eyes, and she led within the haven bore, struck sail, cast anchor, and trod both the shore, she first, he after. Then said Pylos, "Now no more befits thee the least bashful brow, to embolden which this act is put on thee, to seek thy father both at shore and sea, and learn in what clime he abides so close, or in the power of what fate doth repose. Come then, go right to Nestor. Let us see if in his bosom any counsel be that may inform us. Pray him not to trace the common courtship, and to speak in grace of the demander, but to tell the truth, which will delight him, and commend thy youth for such prevention. For he loves no lies, nor will report them, being truly wise." He answered, "Mentor, how, alas, shall I present myself? How great his gravity! My youth by no means that ripe form affords that can digest my mind's instinct in words, wise, and beseeming the ears of one so sage. Youth of most hope blush to use words with age." She said, "Thy mind will some conceit impress, and something God will prompt thy towardness. For I suppose thy birth and breeding too were not in spite of what the gods could do." This said, she swiftly went before, and he her steps made guides, and followed instantly. When soon they reached the Pelian throngs and seats, where Nestor with his son sat, and the meats that for the feast served round about them were, adherents dressing, all their sacred cheer being roast and boiled meats. When the Pylians saw these strangers come, in thrust did all men draw about their entry, took their hands, and prayed they would both sit. Their entry first essayed by Nestor's son Pisistratus, in grace of whose repair he gave them honor's place betwixt his sire and brother Thrasimede, who sat at feast on soft fells that were spread along the sea sands, curved, and reached to them parts of the innards, and did make a stream of sprightly wine into a golden bowl, which to Minerva with a gentle soul he gave, and thus spoke. "Ere you eat, fair guest, invoke the sea's king, at whose secret feast your travel hither makes ye partners now. When, sacrificing as becomes, bestow this bowl of sweet wine on your friend, that he may likewise use these rites of piety. For I suppose his youth doth prayers use, since all men need the gods. But you I choose first in this cup's disposure, since his years seem short of yours, who more like me appears." Thus gave he her the cup of pleasant wine, and since a wise and just man did design the golden bowl first to her free receipt, even to the goddess it did add delight, who thus invoked, Hear thou, whose vast embrace enspheres the whole earth, nor disdain thy grace to us that ask in performing this. To Nestor first, and these fair sons of his, vouchsafe all honor, and next them bestow on all these Pelians that have offered now this most renowned hecatomb to thee, remuneration fit for them and free. And lastly, deign Telemachus and me the work perform for whose effect we came, our safe return, both with our ship and fame. Thus prayed she, and herself obeyed, and in the end performing all for which she prayed. And now, to pray and do as she had done, she gave the fair round bowl to Ulysses' son. The meat then dressed and drawn and served to each guest, they celebrated a most sumptuous feast. When appetite to wine and food allayed, horse-taming Nestor then began and said, Now's life desire is served, as far as fair. Time fits me to inquire what guests there are. Fair guests, what are ye? And for what coast tries your ship the moist deeps? For fit merchandise, or rudely coast ye, like our men of prize, the rough seas tempting, desperately erring, the ill of others in their good conferring? The wise prince now his boldness did begin, for Pallas' self had hardened him within, by this device of travel to explore his absent father, which to girlands wore, his good by manage of his spirits, and then to gain him high grace in the accounts of men. O Nestor, still in whom Neleus lives, and all the glory of the Greeks survives, you ask from whence we are, and I relate, from Ithaca, whose seat is situate where Neus, the renowned mountain, rears his haughty forehead, and the honor bears to be our sea mark. We essayed the waves. The business I must tell, our own good craves, and not the public. I am come to inquire if, in the fame that best men doth inspire of my most suffering father, I may hear some truth of his estate now, who did bear the name, being joined in fight with you alone, to even with earth the height of Ilion. Of all men else that any name did bear and fought for Troy, the several ends we hear, but his death Jove keeps from the world unknown, the certain fame thereof being told by none. If on the continent by enemies slain, or with the waves eat of the ravenous main, for his love, 'tis that to your knees I sue, that you would please, out of your own clear view, to assure his sad end, and say, if your ear hath heard of the unhappy wanderer, to too much sorrow whom his mother bore. You then, by all your bounties I implore, if ever to you deed or word hath stood, by my good father promised, rendered good amongst the Trojans, where ye both have tried the Grecian sufferance, that in naught applied to my respect or pity you will gloze, but unclothed truth to my desires disclose. Oh, much loved, said he, since you renew remembrance of the miseries that grew upon our still in strength opposing Greece amongst Troy's people, I must touch a piece of all our woes there, either in the men Achilles brought by sea and led to gain about the country, or in us that fought about the city, where to death were brought all our chief men, as many as were there. There Mars-like Ajax lies, Achilles there the in council like the gods his friend. There my dear son Antilochus took end, fast measure, swift of foot, and stayed in fight, a number more than that ills felt infinite. Of which to reckon all, what mortal men, if 5 or 6 years you should stay here, can serve such inquiry. You would back again, affected with unsufferable pain before you heard it. 9 years sieged we them, with all the depth and sleight of stratagem that could be thought, ill knit to ill past end. Yet still they toiled us, nor would yet Jove send rest to our labors, nor will scarcely yet. But no man lived that would in public set his wisdom by Ulysses' policy. As thought his equal, so excessively he stood superior all ways. If you be his son indeed, mine eyes even ravish me to admiration, and in all consent your speech puts on his speech's ornament. Nor would one say that one so young could use unless his son a rhetoric so profuse. And while we lived together, he and I, never in speech maintained diversity, nor said in counsel, but by one soul led, with spirit and prudent counsel furnished the Greeks at all hours, that with fairest course, what best became them, they might put in force. But when Troy's high towers we had levelled thus, we put to sea, and God divided us. And then did Jove our sad retreat devise. For all the Greeks were neither just nor wise, and therefore many felt so sharp a fate, sent from Minerva's most pernicious hate, whose mighty father can do fearful things.